I'm Zan Bradford. You're watching My Community, and we'll be right back.
Hello and welcome. It is your weekly program that has always been concerned with the virtual gathering. That is the gathering that occurs on air and online. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, thanks for your time. This week, the spotlight falls on a community in the western side of the parish of St. James that boasts of having a lovely open window to the sea. Judy Haynes Hamilton grew up here. She begins the discussion by speaking about the landscape, the seascape, and the plant life that existed here during her time. You will recognize that what exists today as residential communities overlooking Fix Village, they were all part of the children's playground.
We had what we call carrot roads. We used to live on the beach. It used to be the village. We used to let all of that was trees, dunks trees, tamarind tree, clementary trees. We used to run about there. Then they had, coming further south, you had the sea rocks. We would call them the sea rocks. We would go over there and the guys would go fishing. You could walk from the shore quite a way out because the water was that low. The smallest child could walk out up to the knees, and it would take a while before the water really get up to you. We had manchineel trees on the beach side. There were the grape trees, as you can see here. We have grape trees here now, but these were planted here. But there were some on the beach. As children, we would play on the beach and also in the hill because we had no West Terrace or Wanstead at that time. It was Oxnards. We go and get sugar cane, and we walk home like cane trucks. You carry the cane on your head, and we would come down the hill, but if the watchman catch you, you know what happened. We got some good blows for that, but we didn't mind because the next day we gone again.
Speaking about the hill, exactly what was the hill like and how did they traverse the area during her days?
It was like a cliff face. It didn't have any steps. Right now we have steps up here, but it was just a rugged path that I suppose the water threw it out, and then with regular traffic on it, it became a bit better that you can have a foothold. But on top there was dunks trees, guava trees, and sugar cane. You would find also silk cotton. This is up there is where they had the jamboree, the Scouts jamboree. That's where they had that, and they cleared it then so that they could have the jamboree there. But before that, it was just, and then after it turned into a housing development. After that war was finished, they had Wanstead, I think. Wanstead used to carry cane also, and further up, because it's like in tiers, in steps like. So West Terrace is one, a little further up you get Wanstead, and then you go up and you get the what we call the Venezuelan project, and then further up you got Husbands, and it's like that. They're not all on the same level.
That was all part of growing up in a rural community. Well, back on lower grounds right here in Fix Village, Judy, like other children in the community, had her chores to perform.
We had the socks in the yard. the chickens and the ducks and turkeys, because we weren't accustomed to turkeys coming from the supermarket because we didn't have them, or from the village shop. We grew our own turkeys, pigs, we had sheep. Only thing we didn't have was a cow, but we had various animals. My brother used to have to look after them, and the girls would mainly look after the chickens and so on, feeding them, but he had to look after the sheep and so on.
A very prominent feature on the landscape back then was a shop. Now, this structure was more than a place for commercial activities. In fact, it was an institution in the community, a place of importance and a meeting point where many news items of the village were anchored.
We had some shops around here. There were quite a number of village shops. We had Mr. Small, who later moved to Haynesville. We had Mr. Means. His name was Gerald Means. He was on the beach side. Then it became more well known after, in latter days, because it was sold and it became Old Crystal until it was burnt. We had Miss Lashley Shaw, where when you go to school and the rain come down, the old people come here with the big jackets, and they carry in there, the first thing they do is get a little nip. And every man get a little sip. That will lick out the cold. And they get a bottle of rum, and they get every man that little. And so that will knock out the cold. I don't know how they're going to knock out the cold, because they don't like no knock out nothing. But anyway, that used to be with rum. Rum and alcohol though. Miss Lashley shop, that became defunct after the old people died and so on. It's still there, the structure is still there, but it is different now.
If walls could talk, many a story would be told about not only the commercial activities that occurred within those walls, but the village news that was anchored and discussed daily. In addition to the village shops, the primary school was another important institution in the community.
Schooling. I didn't go to school in Fitz Village. I was not that fortunate because we had one school up here, and that was the Good Shepherd, which was to the south of here, over where the church is. That was a little brown structure and a wooden structure, and there the boys went there, whereas the girls went to Paynes Bay, which is also a wooden structure still, and that's to the north of the church, which is where the Methodist church is, by the window of the sea, to the sea. We girls went there. So they were never together until they went up the hill. And this is like in the latter days in 60 something. And there were some who did not go to what we call those government schools, like they went private because there was a private school in Prospect. And that was carried on by, I'm not sure of the name, but I know that was where the Grahams used to live, and they used to carry a school there.
Another fixture on the landscape which was recognized during Judy's time as being very important to the community was the village church.
We have Good Shepherd on the beach. We have what we call the Bethelite here, which is New Testament Church of God, and there's one Glad Tidings. Those are the churches that we have here in Fitz Village. In addition to those denominations, we have plenty of Jehovah's Witnesses around, and the Methodist churches at Paynes Bay. Mr. Mr. Willoughby's dad, he was the pastor at the New Testament Church of God in the early days. But before him, there was a man by the name of Mr. Chandler. Mr. Willoughby, he stayed there for quite a while until Miss Connolly took over from him.
Judy recalls her participation in a number of those activities that made for a very good church experience.
I remember for church, for the harvest, we used to take the sugar cane and plait the sugar canes together and form an arch. We used to get gooseberries and dunks and string them together and make garlands. And then we would get all the ground provisions and different produce, green bananas, yams, sweet potato, pumpkins. Then you would make sweet bread, cakes, and these things then, after the harvest, the perishable ones were sold directly after the harvest, and the ground provisions would stay until the next day, and then they would go and sell them. Sometimes they used to take some of the produce and give to the shut-ins. It is still done now because where I go to church, that is done. They make provision for the shut-ins and so on from their produce.
Today we know it as an open window to the sea where many individuals meet to recreate themselves, relax and enjoy a picnic. But Judy now tells a different story of what existed here during her early days.
Prior to this, houses were here. My great aunt used to live at the top. Then there was a lady next to her. I don't remember her name, but she used to live next. And there was a lady over the other side named Miss Odell. And then all of them moved off from here and went up top in Berbice. They were moved off from here and they went to Berbice for the erection of the Esplanade.
You're watching My Community, and we'll be right back.
Fix Village was also known for its fishing. Yes, this was a fishing community, and that existed here on a larger scale in comparison to what you see here today. Wherever there is fishing, you will find boat building.
Here, in this area, they used to do boat building, and the guys would have them pull up the boats around here because as I can remember, Fitz Village used to be quite a fishing village, like how Pile Bay was. But all the fisher folks have died out, and the young fellas don't really want to deal in that. We have one person around here who does fishing, and his name is Sevens. No, okay, his name is Stephen, but we call him Sevens. His father was also a fisherman, and he seemed to have taken to that. And anytime you pass here during the evening, you might see Sevens out there playing his trade because he does flying fishing. And as it is now, he's doing brimming. Sometime back, maybe last week or so, he had quite a lovely catch. Brims, the redfish. Redfish, right. So he goes for them and he plays his trade over there.
You have heard it from a resident. Fix Village was a thriving fishing community. Today there is one man standing. This is a call for students or any other interested individual to visit Sevens and record his memories as we seek to look back at efficient village that was. It would make for a very good research paper or dissertation.
My grandmother, she was a hawker. She used to sell with a tray. She used to sell nuts and so on, but she would also do fish. My great aunt, she was also a fish seller. And there was a lady, she used to live up the gap then, and she used to sell fish too. There are quite a number of them who used to live around here who used to sell fish, and they're all now deceased. The last one to go was Miss Granderson, who died a year or so ago.
Another reason why you should move quickly and record Sevens. Now, what about the physical layout of the area, its geographical points?
Fitz Village is a quiet community. It starts from just before the hotel. And the first road that you're going to meet is Risk Road. If you're coming from the north, you're going to meet Risk Road. That's the first road. Then there's a small road by the name of Vaughn's Road. Then you're going to meet Lashley's Road. Then there's one that's kind of no name. Then we have Berbice 1, Berbice 2. Then you're going to meet this one, Pigot's Road, Jordan's Road. Beyond that is Johnson's Road. And we go to as far as Benskin's Driving School, and that is Fitz Village in a nutshell. Because after Benskin is Prospect, and after the hotel at Crystal Cove, after that you're in Derrick's. No, this was the landmass for this area, and quite a way down. What has happened is we used to have, there's still the sea rocks down there, but people have built up houses on them now. And so the paths that you used to use are no longer there. The majority of the trees have been cut down to make way for housing and so on. So basically this is what it would have been in just a strip in this area.
The point is again made here in this program. If communities are to survive, they must expand. Fitz Village is alive today because it has expanded. People are required for communities. Now, what about the space over there on which the commercial establishment now stands?
Before Jordan Supermarket, this was residential, like people lived there, because I come along knowing Jordan's mother living where their house is now, and his brother used to live below, which would be the car park. But Jordan Supermarket, Jordan started where that pink building over there is, but before that, they started above the road actually. And this would have been in his father's day. They had a little wooden shop, and then he had it below where he had a snackette. He had a snackette, and the supermarket was to the front. The little mini mart was to the front because he had upgraded from the village shop thing. And he started getting girls from other places, and they came in and were working. So he actually started out there before he went into this one. But he started out as a village shop too. Over there they used to have, it was a car park. He had a little car park, small car park, and there were these bamboo trees. My grandmother used to sell there, and then there was another lady, and she used to sell like vegetables. So when you couldn't get, we wouldn't get vegetables from Jordan, so you get vegetables from her. But he would sell the sugar, the rice, you know, those type of things, cheese and so on. Then he had with the snack it. You could go down there at night and get chips and a burger and a hot dog.
Fix Village was a rural community. However, with the urban sprawl, the community was swallowed up in urbanization. It is important to understand at what point that transition occurred.
This would have happened in the early 70s where they started the transformation. Because from the time that they did the Esplanade, they changed. So we weren't having to walk on cart roads anymore. We started to get a low road, you know, and it started to upgrade from there. Instead of having to walk through all the mud, and even although we had the roads, when you were leaving home and the rain is falling, you had to use 2 pairs of shoes because you had to wear one down the hill or down the road to get away from the water, and then you put on your shoes. When the rain falls, it comes from all St. Thomas, wherever, and it comes down. So sometimes I cannot leave home until it has abated, or else I'll be needing a boat.
We move on now to transportation. What about public transportation here in Fix Village during her time?
No, we never had Rockland buses in this area. We had, what I can remember quite vividly was the Mercedes-Benz with Tarzan. Tarzan was the bus driver, and I can remember those, the blue bus. And we used to get, at that time you used to pay something like 5 cents to get from here to there. And, you know, when I was going to school, we had tickets, but they thought that that was different because if you don't go to school this week, you can use your ticket next week. You used to tear it off. So then they changed the colors. They said, well, no, this ain't working. So they changed the colors so that if they have blue this week, next week might be pink. So you can't carry that later to the bus no more. Right. So with the buses, we used to have these, we mainly had them Mercedes Benz down the side. Because I don't remember using the one that you could step around. I remember seeing them, but I didn't know nothing much about them because they were not in this area, and I know I've seen them in the turning where they had the green one with red. I know there was a yellow with red. I do remember seeing them, but I know nothing much about them. We also had donkey cart because there was a guy up the hill, his name was Bailey, and he used to have a donkey with the cart. And sometimes he would give a little ride in the donkey cart, but not too often. But he would give people a ride, but not too often. He got to be in a good mood. And the same when he was drunk, the donkey used to carry him home.
You would recall that similar stories of the donkey were shared in the Brereton community. Judy Haynes Hamilton has memories of the pickups that traversed the area.
We didn't have any around here, but they used to run up and down. We used to use them. The open back pickups by Benji and Rumi. Yeah, Barford. Benji used to take out Alexander School children. Barford used to take out the Courage and Parry children. So I do remember them. And then there was a guy named Maxwell but all of them came from back north. There wasn't anybody within this area who had a minivan, a pickup, as we would say.
You're watching My Community, and we'll be right back.
Children often fear the experiences of community funerals.
I didn't like them when I was younger.
You remember them? What were they like?
They used to look too ugly with a big horse. Because they had a horse before the hearse came in. And they used to take the people home to be viewed. So I never really used to go to them. I remember going to one funeral, well, the home. There was this little guy, he had come from England, and on his way home from school, there were some dogs, and when the dogs rushed the wire, he jumped in the road, and he got killed. So he was in the house. When they brought him home, he was in the house, and my mother said, "Oh, y'all, when they come and go and look at Johnny." Funeral was quite scary for me. And truthfully, when the hearse or whatever carrying the body passed, I can tell you, I ain't walking that road. I taking the hill. So if I here, cross the hill I going, because I ain't going on that road.
In almost every community in Barbados, you found characters. These individuals provided entertainment for community members.
We had quite a few. There was this guy, we used to call him Boise Crutch. We had Marshall Dillon. He used to say he's the sheriff of this county. We had Mackie. He died this year. May God rest him in peace. I remember there was a boat out at the mooring, because we used to have fishing boats moored off out there. There was this boat moored off, and somebody went and burned the boat. Mackie get on the payphone and called the fire service. They got fire here. Firemen came up blazing. Well, the guy here, what side of the fire he said out there? They said, well, we can't go up there. He said, but I know it's a fire, so I called her. Then we had the marshal. The marshal used to go her on his house. Okras are scarce, but slugs are plentiful. So you want to cook it with slugs? We had fun growing up in Fitz Village.
Life, as it were, in Fitz Village, as told by Judy Haynes Hamilton. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. This has been My Community St. James. Until next week at the same time, it's goodbye for now.
Everywhere.